Sorry, ma'am, but we need you to switch seats for another passenger. Maya looked up from her book, her eyebrows drawing together slightly, not out of anger but confusion. I'm sorry, is there some kind of mistake? She asked, her voice calm, almost courteous. She flipped over her ticket and handed it to the flight attendant. Clear as day, Seat 2A, VIP cabin. No error. Brielle glanced quickly at the ticket. She already knew it was correct, but orders were orders. No mistake, ma'am, she replied, her tone softer now, but still steady, like a line rehearsed. It's just that, another passenger needs this seat. Brielle tilted slightly to the side, as if to accidentally reveal the man waiting just behind the row. Maya didn't turn her head fully, but one glance was enough. Crisp gray suit, perfectly knotted tie, a posture that was half relaxed, half commanding. She didn't know his name. But the type, Maya knew all too well. The kind of man who walked into a room like he was the center of gravity, and everyone else was just orbiting.
No crutch. No children in tow.
Nothing urgent in his demeanor. There was only one reason: he simply didn't want to sit in his original seat. Maya gently tightened her grip on the strap of her bag, resting at her feet.
No enjeu, no sarcasme, no outburst.
She wasn't that kind of person. What's the reason? She asked, eyes fixed on Brielle. I paid for this seat. Brielle felt her heartbeat quicken, just slightly. She knew she was standing between two fires. On one side, the internal VIP who carried special privileges. On the other, a sharp, composed woman who wouldn't be moved with a shrug and a smile. She lowered her voice, as if speaking softly might make the matter seem less heavy. We're asking for your cooperation, because he has an important connecting flight. So do I, Maya replied immediately, without hesitation. Her tone wasn't raised, but it was firm, like steel sharpened smooth. And comfort is exactly what I paid extra for. In that moment, Brielle had nothing to say. And Carter Hale, the man standing just behind, tilted his head slightly, a faint furrow forming between his brows. He was used to having seats given up for him without needing to speak. But now something in Maya's calm, unshaken, unmoved, made him lose the upper hand, if only for a few seconds. Maya Jordan adjusted her seatbelt and leaned back into the soft leather seat in the VIP cabin of the late afternoon flight. She didn't often indulge in luxury, but this time, after a year of juggling difficult deals, sleepless nights and relentless deadlines, she had decided to upgrade. Not to show off. Simply because she deserved a moment of quiet. Her seat was at the front row, next to the window. The space was open and calm, lit with soft lights and a faint scent of citrus from the warm towel resting on her tray. She exhaled, letting herself believe she'd finally set the weight down. But only minutes later, the sound of soft heels approached. A flight attendant, name tag reading Brielle, appeared beside her. The woman's smile was polite, but it lacked sincerity. Then, with a slightly forced tone, she said, "Excuse me, ma'am, but we need you to change seats for another passenger." Maya raised an eyebrow. "I'm sorry, was there some kind of mistake?" she asked calmly. She lifted her ticket, clearly marked, Seat 2A, VIP cabin. Brielle glanced at the ticket, then replied quickly, as if reciting a script. "No mistake. But, the other passenger needs this seat." She subtly stepped aside, revealing the man waiting behind her. Gray tailored suit. Perfectly knotted tie. The posture of someone used to getting what he wanted. Carter Hale. Maya didn't know his name, but she knew the type. The kind of man who walked into every room as if the world were his boardroom, and the rest of us were just his assistants. No gratis. No children. No visible emergency. Just one thing: he didn't want the seat he'd been assigned. Maya gently tightened her grip on the strap of her bag beneath her feet. No anger, no sarcasm. She simply asked, "What's the reason?" "I paid for this seat." Brielle exhaled quietly, lowering her voice. "We're asking for your cooperation, ma'am. He has a tight connection." "So do I," Maya said without hesitation. "And comfort is why I paid extra." A strange silence followed. The man, Carter, stepped closer, injecting himself into the conversation. "Seriously, do you have to make a scene? It's just a seat." Maya turned to him, eyes sharp as a blade. "If it's just a seat, why don't you sit in yours?" A soft "do" rippled from a few rows back. No one spoke for a few seconds. Brielle looked at Maya as if trying to measure whether social pressure might crack her. But Maya sat firm, eyes locked on the man before her. Because this wasn't just about a seat anymore. Maya's final words brought the entire cabin to a halt. No one breathed too loudly. No one blinked. The man, Carter, hesitated, clearly stunned by a response he wasn't used to. His face flushed, not with shame, but with the frustration of someone who was accustomed to winning these kinds of encounters without contest. Brielle, the flight attendant, shifted her weight awkwardly from one foot to the other. She opened her mouth, about to say something more, but was interrupted by a voice from across the aisle. She's right. If anyone can be asked to leave the seat they paid for, what does fairness even mean? The speaker was a middle-aged woman in a thick ivory sweater, her graying hair pulled neatly back. She didn't raise her voice, but her words rang clear and firm. The cabin's atmosphere began to shift. A younger man working on his laptop leaned toward his girlfriend and whispered, "What is this? I thought stuff like this only happened in movies." Carter looked around and saw it, control slipping from his grasp. He exhaled sharply and turned to Brielle. "Handle it. I don't have time for this." Brielle glanced toward the front of the cabin, clearly hoping for backup. But Maya didn't let the silence grow. "If I stand up today," she said evenly, "then who's next? A young traveler? A single mom? An elderly person who doesn't speak the language?" She locked eyes with Brielle. "I'm not the problem. I'm sitting in the seat I paid for. The problem is how you're trying to justify something that shouldn't be happening." Nods began to ripple through the cabin. A few people pulled out their phones. Cameras clicked. No one said it aloud, but everyone knew this moment was no longer contained. Carter backed away, muttering under his breath, and returned, ironically, to his original seat, which was still in business class. Still luxurious. Just not first. Brielle stood silently for a few seconds, then finally murmured, "We sincerely apologize for the inconvenience." Maya didn't respond. She gave a small nod, eyes focused out the window. But something had shifted inside her. What seemed like a small encounter over a seat wasn't just about a plane. It was about something bigger, about how people like her, those who didn't fit the default image of belonging, were constantly asked to step aside, politely, quietly, as if it were the natural thing to do. And Maya decided, this time, silence would not be the ending. "You're not afraid?" the reporter asked, flipping through her notes, eyes locked on Maya through the camera lens. Maya sat upright in the chair. Her hair was neatly tied back, her face minimally made up but exuding quiet strength. She didn't flinch under the spotlight. "Of course I'm afraid," she said plainly. "But I'm more afraid for the people who come after me. If I stay silent, this will happen again. And again. And again. And no one will ever be held accountable." The interview lasted 12 minutes. It aired on NPR Detroit's morning broadcast, but within a day, it had spread across social media. It was clipped, quoted, debated, and most of all, shared at lightning speed. She's right. When you stay silent, injustice becomes the norm. This isn't just about a seat. It's about dignity and basic rights. Public figures began to speak out. Actors, journalists, athletes, even a former lead flight attendant from Astrofly shared her own post, not surprised. "I saw things like this more than once." Astrofly responded with a press release, cold, measured, full of corporate speak. "We remain committed to creating a service environment that is fair and inclusive. The incident is currently under internal review." But by then, the public no longer wanted statements. They wanted action. Maya, for her part, didn't say anything more after the interview. She didn't need to. With each passing hour, more and more people began sharing their own stories. Discrimination while flying, booking hotels, or simply trying to access services they had paid for. What started with one seat became a symbol. And Maya, once a passenger asked to step aside, became the catalyst for a nationwide reckoning. By the weekend, the hashtag #YourVoiceYourSeat had climbed into the top trending topics on Twitter. A small protest was held outside Los Angeles International Airport, where dozens held signs reading, "You can take the seat, but you won't take the voice." The Astrofly headquarters in Chicago had always been a quiet place, where meetings ran on schedule, and decisions were signed off without fanfare. But that Monday morning, the air felt different, tense and suffocating, as if the whole building were holding its breath. On the 14th floor, the glass wall of the boardroom reflected the dim sunlight. Inside, every senior executive's eyes were fixed on a single thing, a large screen displaying a live chart of social media activity. The chart burned red, surging like a digital tsunami, with trending keywords. Hashtag Justice for Maya. Hashtag Your Voice Your Seat. Hashtag Fly Fair Fly Free. We're losing control of the narrative, sighed the VP of PR, her voice hoarse after emergency calls with 3 major media outlets. CNN has scheduled a second interview with Maya. Vox wants to speak with other passengers denied their rights. BuzzFeed already has 15 similar stories lined up for verification. CEO Catherine Shaw tapped her fingers on the wooden table. Known for only speaking when necessary, she now wore a rare look of visible frustration. What about internal feedback? What's customer service saying? She asked. We've received over 4,000 complaint emails in just 48 hours, the head of customer support replied, sweat forming at his temples. And 17 employees have submitted letters reporting incidents similar to Maya's. A cold silence swept through the room. I warned about this last month, the head of HR said quietly. We can't keep people like Wilkins, the lead attendant that day, when his disciplinary record is thick enough to need its own file. Everyone knew. No one acted, added a legal advisor. Catherine closed her eyes for a moment. When she opened them, she had made her decision. Wilkins is suspended effective immediately. And the entire flight crew that day, full investigation. What about the flight supervisor? Asked the deputy CEO. Also suspended. I don't need more justification. Meanwhile, Maya was sitting alone at a cafe near home. Her phone kept buzzing, messages from strangers, interview requests, thank you letters from people she'd never met. She stared at the screen for a long time, then set the phone down, closed her eyes, and exhaled deeply. She wasn't feeling triumphant. She was just waiting to see if what she'd started could truly go somewhere. 2 days after the executive meeting at Astrofly, Maya woke up to the soft light of Friday morning and found an email in her inbox from CEO office at astroflyglobal.com. The subject line: Official response from Astrofly Executive Board. Maya opened it. She read each line slowly. It wasn't a cold apology, nor a veiled denial. It was a statement, long and uncharacteristic. We acknowledge a serious failure in how we handled passenger procedures on flight AFA 319. The actions of our staff not only violated company policy but revealed a cultural issue that requires urgent attention. Following a meeting with Ms. Maya Davis, we hereby announce: all personnel involved, including flight attendants and flight supervisors, have been terminated effective immediately. An independent oversight committee, including representatives from civil rights organizations, will be formed within 30 days. A new customer policy will be implemented, committing to transparent and equitable handling of all discrimination-related complaints. Astrofly does not simply apologize. We correct. Publicly. And systematically. Maya read the letter 3 times. Then she turned on her camera, sat at her desk, looked straight into the lens, and said, I didn't need them to bow. I needed them to change. Today we've won a small victory, but it's the beginning of something much bigger. She posted the video to her personal account with the caption: No one should be removed from a seat they paid for. No one should have to argue to be treated like a person. But if we must, then we argue all the way. 3 hours later, the video hit 2 million views. Human rights organizations shared it widely. Several politicians voiced their support. The hashtag #StandWithMaya trended again, this time, not out of outrage but hope. That evening, on a national talk show, the host asked, Do you think you've won? Maya smiled gently, tilting her head. No one wins when a system is forced to change. We just made it look at itself. And begin again. 2 days after the meeting at Astrofly headquarters, Maya woke up to the soft morning light of Friday and found an email in her inbox from CEO office at astroflyglobal.com. The subject line read, Official response from Astrofly Executive Board. Maya opened the email. She read each line slowly. It wasn't a cold apology, nor a veiled denial of responsibility. It was a statement, long and unusual. We acknowledge a serious failure in our handling of a passenger on Flight 12 this month. The actions of our staff not only violated internal protocol, but also reflect a cultural issue that must be taken seriously. Following our meeting with Ms. Maya Davis, we officially announce the entire crew involved in the incident, including the flight attendants and the flight supervisor, has been immediately terminated. An independent oversight committee, including representatives from civil rights organizations, will be established within 30 days. A new customer policy will be issued, committing to transparency and fairness in handling all discrimination-related complaints. Astrofly is not just apologizing. We are correcting our mistake. Publicly. And systemically. Maya read it 3 times. Then she turned on her camera. Sitting at her desk, she looked straight into the lens and said, "I don't need them to bow. I need them to change. And today we have a small victory, but it's the beginning of something bigger." She posted the video to her personal account with the caption, "No one should be removed from a seat they paid for. No one should have to argue just to be treated like a human being. But if we have to do it, we do it all the way." 3 hours later, the video reached 2 million views. Human rights organizations reshared it widely, politicians voiced their support, and the hashtag #StandWithMaya climbed to the top of Twitter trends again, but this time, not out of outrage. Out of hope. That evening, during a live television talk show, the host asked Maya, "Do you think you've won?" Maya smiled softly and tilted her head. No one wins when a system is forced to change. We just make it look at itself. And begin again. 1 week after Astrofly's official statement, the media continued to report extensively on the incident. But what stood out most was this: it didn't stop there. A flood of posts began to appear on social media across the United States, users sharing their own experiences of being asked to give up their seats, being subjected to extra baggage checks because of their skin color, or being labeled disruptive simply for asking a reasonable question. Stories uncannily similar to Maya's, differing only in time and place. Hashtags like #FlyingWhileBlack, #MySeat2, and #AccountableAir began trending. From Houston to New York, from Atlanta to San Francisco, people started demanding answers from airlines. What is your transparency policy? Are your anti-discrimination procedures strong enough? Are complaints really being investigated properly? Competing airlines, fearing they might be next in the public spotlight, responded quickly. United Air announced a full retraining program for all ground staff on cultural sensitivity. Sky Blue Airlines partnered with civil rights group ACLU to audit their complaint handling processes. Jet North promised to release quarterly public reports on racial discrimination complaints. On national television, a reporter summed it up. Maya Davis didn't just reclaim her seat, she forced the entire industry to reconsider where it sits. Universities began incorporating Maya's story into business ethics and organizational behavior curricula. Nonprofits invited her to speak at public sector training programs. Maya signed a publishing deal for her book The Seat I Paid For, recounting her experience from being asked to give up her seat to holding an entire system accountable. But for Maya, success wasn't about recognition. It was about a moment, when a stranger at the airport paused, extended a hand and said, "Thank you. Because of you, I didn't bow my head today when they double-checked my bag. I spoke up, and for the first time they apologized." Maya smiled. And for the first time in weeks, she felt at peace. She didn't stand up to become a symbol. She stood up because no one else would. And when she did, thousands of others began to stand too. 3 months after Maya stood her ground in the VIP cabin, not to leave, but to say no, her life had changed completely. But she refused to let the story remain a wound to be healed. Maya turned it into a hammer, to break open doors that had long been shut. She founded Equal Sky, a coalition protecting the rights of passengers facing discrimination, not just in aviation, but across all public service sectors. The Equal Sky website and app allowed users to document, report, and submit evidence of incidents with just a few taps, connected directly to volunteer legal teams. Maya traveled to universities, industry conferences, and government agencies, carrying a clear message. Equity is not a privilege granted. It's a position reclaimed, one step at a time. Her TEDx talk drew over 7 million views in 2 weeks. Her opening line left the room silent. I was once asked to leave a seat I had paid for. That day, I kept my seat. But today, I want to spend my life making sure you keep yours too. Major airlines, under pressure from equal sky and public demand, began releasing quarterly transparency reports on discrimination complaints, for the first time in industry history. A piece of legislation informally dubbed Maya's Standard was introduced in Congress, requiring public service providers to log, respond to, and resolve customer discrimination reports within 30 days, with independent oversight. Maya never ran for office. But the political system came to her, and listened. When a journalist asked, "Did you ever imagine that one seat on a plane would lead to all of this?" She smiled. "No. But I knew one thing, that seat wasn't a privilege. It was the last line. And when someone tries to push you off of it, you have two choices, stand up, or stay down forever." Maya chose to stand. And by making that choice, she opened a path for millions of others, people who now speak up, no longer step back, and no longer settle for less than they deserve. This story ends with one woman. And begins again, with all of us.